Good day, good afternoon, good night. How you doing? This is MCM and you're listening to You're Probably Right. Today we are going to have a serious conversation. Well, maybe not a serious conversation, but there's going to be a serious talk happening here. Now, of course, I'm only doing the talking, but just stay tuned. Okay. Here we go. So, welcome to episode 217, When Talent Isn't Enough, the Hidden Advantage in Education. Okay, so imagine a classroom. Oh, wait, before I even get to all that, listen, remember, this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. This will be done. This will be done. Just trying to put words together at this point. Listen, remember, this podcast is not a Christian podcast, but it is a podcast that is done by a Christian. So my views will be from a Christian point of view or just from a worldly Joe Blow point of view. But I just wanted to let you know that. Again, it is for personal fun entertainment reasons. So don't be playing this for your whole education system in your city. It's just me and you talking. Okay, so a little bit of a different topic today. It's not really about relationships. I guess it is in a sense, but it's more about the life of kids who have tutors, don't have tutors, gets coaching or doesn't get coaching, or just life in education and the hidden advantage in education. Okay, so as I was saying, if you're driving a car, even if it's Tesla and it's a self-driving Tesla, please don't close your eyes. But if you're able just to sit there, maybe in your couch, maybe in your classroom, maybe at your home in the sun, sitting on the porch. Obviously, it won't be one of those where you're washing dishes and closing your eyes or cutting the lawn. No. Okay, listen. Just to say, you're lying down in your bed. You're thinking of what to do with those kids at school. So, and you're a teacher. Imagine a classroom of 30 students. Some have private tutors, attend coding camps, and are on elite sports teams. Others just do what's assigned in school and try their best. Now imagine they're all graded the same way. Who's really being tested? The students or the system? This isn't just about effort anymore. It's about access. What we're seeing isn't pure measure of intelligence, talent, or hard work. Although those things do have something to do with it, but in most cases right now, it's all about exposure. It's practice. It's how many shots did you get up? It's privilege. It's packaged as performance. And it shows up neatly at the end of the term in the form of a digital or physical or both report card, or in the form of a championship or not. And while natural talent can shine, it's often drowned out in the sea of trained repetition and preparation. Students with outside resources are bringing extra skills into the classroom and into sports, music, debate, and even lunchroom discussion. But that's advantage. Or is it advantage? It's invisible until it shows up on test scores, as I was saying, award ceremonies, university acceptance letters, Walmart applications. So today we're unpacking something that many educators parents, and even students are feeling, but not always able to explain. Why do some kids rise effortlessly while others struggle to stay afloat at school, even when they're just as bright, just as capable, and just as hungry to succeed? All right, let me just flip the script on this thing a little bit. Hey, that's better. So, y'all, I'm happy that you decided to check me out. This is MCM, and you are listening to You Probably Right podcast. As I said before, this is episode 217, and it was just something like the reason why I have this topic out is it was something that I've been thinking about. Now, I've worked in schools, and I have children, and I was a student. So, but of course, this all happened in the GTA. So from Toronto to an area we used to call Scarborough. I guess it's still Scarborough, York Region, Markham, Durham. All these places that have either parented, lived, or have helped educate. So like I just wanted to kind of have a thought, like just thinking out loud kind of a thing. I guess that's pretty much what I do every time. So but like I'm hoping that if you are an educator that you are actually thinking about this, right? Like I might actually be probably right. Or maybe I'm not, right? It's for you to decide. It's for you to either use this information, as we said, it is entertainment only, but if it makes you think, besides saying that this guy's an idiot, then I've done my job. So it's not whether or not you agree with me, or you'll take heed in any type of way, or maybe I'm saying everything absolutely the opposite of what it is, then at least it's made you think along those lines, right? Okay, so first, the concept of shadow education. What is shadow education? Shadow education, people will call private tutoring, coaching, lessons outside of school hours. You know, like Kumon, Sylvan, Mamba Sports Academy, AAA hockey, elite dance. These aren't just add-ons. They're education or educational steroids, really. These programs, often I'll tell you that personally, I've been at gyms where I told you I have kids. So sometimes I've had to go and get into exercise after work, and it's after school hours or just barely after school hours. And there's kids already in droves coming into the community center to get their whatever, or their swim on, their acrobatic dancing, like whatever they're doing with them hula hoops, and all kinds of other stuff. And meanwhile, my kids are just at home, like, hey, make sure you do your homework. You know what I mean? Or yeah, you can go bounce the ball around outside for a while. And it's like you as a parent, because you might not be able to afford those things, are thinking, man, are my kids being left behind? When they try to have a competition against one of these kids that really literally leave school, get dropped home, get dropped off at the gym to do whatever their thing is, whether it's that or Kumon or a Sylvan or a Mamba or whatever it is, you know what I mean? And you kind of, you sit to yourself like, well, at least I do, right? And you might be one of those people who've been able to afford to keep your kids into something every after school, or 3 times a week or 2 times a week, to literally get a leg up. And it's great if you can, but again, this is just a thought. These programs mirror school curriculum and sports drills, or better curriculum, and giving many students many reps outside of school. So whether it's just doing the times table on 5 different sheets, or why did you do this, Johnny? You could have done that, Johnny. You know what I mean? Like, while others are just doing chores, babysitting, watching their siblings, or just trying to keep up, a lot of the time, I've seen it where teachers will maybe pass a unit that maybe they taught the unit. Let's just say you taught the unit, you're a teacher, you taught the unit, and you give a quiz or you give a test, or let's say you give a quiz, and you have 25 students in your class, and 17 of them do very well, right? And then you have 5 who don't do so well. What did I say, 17? Said 17. Okay, so that left like 2 or something like that. Anyways, the point is, out of the 17 that did well, because that's all the really number that I'm really paying attention to here, 11 of them have outside tutoring. And say, let's say the other 6 are just really good at math. They have a high aptitude, or maybe they were just doing their homework properly and they have an aptitude for math. You understand? Still, the other ones that may or may not have an aptitude or are totally horrible on their own, or their parents can't teach them or show them anything, or they don't need extra help and they're just okay students in general in that course. The point is, as I kind of beat it down, is that the numbers are skewed in most cases because of the outside learning, and a lot of the time the feedback to the teacher, because a lot of the time the quiz, not only is it feedback for the student, but it's also feedback to the teacher. The teacher gives a pop quiz and all the students do horrible. It's like it's a pretest, right? And all the kids do horrible. It's like, oh, I think we need to go back to page 7, kids, and redo this because most of you don't understand. You understand? And that's what I'm saying happens in the opposite as well, where you'll have all the kids, or 80% of the kids, do really well on a test, and the other ones are just floundering, wondering what the heck. Maybe one was even sick. The end result is, in that situation, is generally the teacher moves on to the next thing. Like, oh, everybody gets it. Okay, so the big test is coming up on Friday. And in many cases, this happens so often. It's kind of like if it was a basketball team and you're just starting out and you've done warm-ups and you've done a few drills here and there, and you get to dribbling, and let's say you have 12 people on the team and 6 are really proficient at dribbling, right? And if you have 12 and you have 6, the other 6 are not so great, but you have 6 and maybe a couple tall ones. So you're like, oh, let's go on to reverse layups because we already got dribbling down packed. You understand? So therefore the kids who were just on the team, just made the team by athletic prowess or athletic ability, or just the fact that they happen to have, like, I mean, you could even say that a basketball net outside of a house is going to give you reps. You're going to be a better shooter, right? Like, I'm just saying, it's just access is the point. I have access to a basketball net outside of my house because I actually have a house and we have a garage, right? Or I live in a basement of somebody who has a basketball net on the garage and the owner said I can shoot hoops on it, right? Or I am the kid who lives in an apartment, no access to a hoop on my house, but my parents have access to coaching for me, or training for me, or a house league for me. Do you understand? And the issue is, it's everybody's being tested or graded on the same at the same level. Now, I know we've started to have schools in Ontario where it's sports school and you have to have a couple sports and your education have to be up to snuff, or at least you must be at least passing and proficient in learning or whatever. But if you're an exceptional athlete, especially in a couple sports, then you get to slide over to that at high school. I don't know. I think those schools tend to play schools outside. I know they play other sports schools in the area, but also they play schools outside of your own city, province. So you play higher level. But I'm not really thinking of them. We're just thinking of just regular kids in a regular school. You understand? Let's see. The question is it fair to accept or expect the same outcomes from students who are running two completely different races, but being judged by the same finish line? You got a B or you got a C. You know what I mean? Just a question, just a thought. All right. Secondly, what the research says. Studies show private instruction can give students the equivalent of 3 to 15 months of additional learning per year. One-on-one tutoring has up to a 2 standard deviation advantage. That means they're operating nearly 2 grade levels ahead in many cases because of tutoring. In sports, students with elite coaching enter school teams as polished players. Not necessarily better, or not necessarily better athletes, just better prepared. I understand. I hope you kind of get where I'm going with this. So I've seen it personally, as a parent. I've had a kid who just played basketball with me. Like, let's go to the court, buddy. We have access to a court. There you go. And a dad who's willing to, or who understands the game. Okay, so he has that little access there. And some might say it's a big access. If you're a stay-at-home mom and you're a single parent and you know nothing about basketball, or you're a stay-at-home dad and you just came to this country and you know nothing about the rules of basketball or how to do it, then you can't even throw 2 words in to help your kid out. Or if you're horrible at math, or if you didn't go to, let's just say you didn't go to high school for whatever reason, you had to drop out, right? Your kid has less access. The less access you have and the less resources you have for your kids, it's the less access, the less resources. It trickles down the line. Listen, it's like entering a cooking competition. One kid has been trained by Gordon Ramsay in a private kitchen, and another is learning to boil water for the first time. And somehow they're both judged on who can make the best lasagna. Obviously, we know what's going to happen. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean the kid who makes the best lasagna is a better cook. Now, it shows that way because they've been able to measure out and they've been able to cook down mincemeat into a nice bolognese sauce or whatever the sauce is, right? They know how long to, let's say, boil the lasagna. You know what I mean? Or maybe they don't boil it. Maybe they use a different one. Maybe use the one that comes out of the box and they bake it. But the point is, they've had access to cooking, so they understand timing. They know that if you're putting the lasagna in the oven, you don't just put it right to the back where it's touching the wall of the oven, or right at the front where it's almost on the door so you can see it better through the window. No, you put it in the center of the oven, up and down, middle, front to back. You understand? But the person who's just learning how to boil water is not going to be able to know that. So in other words, they've been given a head start. So there must be another way that we can judge. Obviously, we need to test. I get that. I'm not saying, oh, no tests for anybody. But it just kind of lets you, it just kind of, I guess, explains it even better. When you're thinking about math, when you're thinking about, let's say, basketball and access to tutoring and coaching and training, what I've seen from the front lines, as I say, I've worked in schools, different capacities. Students outperforming, not because they're naturally smarter, but because they've already seen the material, right? They've seen it because sometimes the teachers that are teaching them, let's say at Kumon or something like that, have worked in school board schools, or they just grab the curriculum off the internet and they find work to get it at that level, plus a little bit more to prepare their students. So when you're going to do whatever it takes to make sure that your students are performing well. So when their parents are getting their kids getting an A, and you say, yes, he's getting an A, but he still needs to keep coming. Um, and parents like the results. They're saying, yes, my kid's going to Harvard or U of T in the engineering department or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they just see the results. They're going to keep paying, right? You obviously have the parents who kid gets good marks this year and then pulls them out and says, "Oh, you're doing fine. He doesn't need Kumon anymore," right? And then slowly the kid's marks come back to the pack, and then it's like, "Oh, better get back into Kumon." Um, I've seen 8-year-olds who can do algebra because they've been to Kumon for 3 years. But we assume they're gifted and they have gifted testing. And I mean, if you've had Kumon in a few different things, you're gonna test higher. It's just the reality. Whereas you'll have kids who can barely hold a pencil and they're dyslexic, haven't had any testing or training or tutoring, but is actually smarter than the kid who went to Kumon and did amazing on the testing. In gym class, the student who played rep basketball for 5 years and dominated intramurals, while the naturally athletic kids with no training look very average and even less. Real world examples to add, I guess. Listen, I had a student once who couldn't understand why her math marks weren't improving. Meanwhile, 3 of her classmates had tutors. She was comparing her raw effort to their rehearsed excellence. And again, as I'm saying this, I'm not sitting here saying I have the answer. I'm saying it's something for parents, students, and teachers to really look at when it comes to marks and awards and ability and access and the whole thing. So I'm sure you probably have an idea at this point, but why is it creating division? Well, teachers under pressure to meet benchmarks may unintentionally teach to the higher group, right? This leaves the students who don't have the out of school exposure feeling confused, frustrated, or even stupid. Some disengage, others act out. A few are just labeled as lazy and unmotivated, and all the other things the teachers say about kids. But here's the thing. How do you stay motivated when your best effort keeps falling short of someone else or someone else's second attempt, right? You got your first shot at this algebra. Meanwhile, David over there has been doing algebra all summer while it's September and you just get back in school. How do you compare? You say, well, you don't. You just do the best version. Your teacher's not concerned about the best version, that the fact that you were just watching your little sister all summer and being very responsible and making sure she's eating on time and taking a bath and changing her clothes and brushing her teeth. You know what I mean? Like, you're doing all these life skill things, but when it comes to school, your parents are going to see how horrible or how mediocre your marks are. Meanwhile, you got David over there killing it, and he has to do nothing but show up at a math class 3 times a week for an hour. You know what I mean? What this means for parents, teachers, principals. Be mindful that high-performing students may not be smarter. They're just more rehearsed. And many of you are the people who have kids, have your kids even, your own kids in these things. And many don't. Some of you have kids who are special needs, delayed intellectually or physically, or just hampered by something. Don't teach to the top of the class only, or treat the kids who got the A's better because they're quiet and he gets A's. He gives me no problems. That's not how teaching should be done. Parents, if you can afford tutoring, great, but understand how it shifts the class dynamic. If you can't advocate for your child to get equitable support in school, just think about it. I'm just saying, not saying don't get your kids tutoring, don't put your kids on a team because you need them to fall back to everybody else. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying remember remember the privilege that you have, because not everybody has that access. And trust me, I'm not one of those people who are like, oh, we need equity for everything and blah blah blah. It's not that. That's not even the point. It's not my point at all. It's just remember, when you are judging these children, remember that many of them are having a few different sets of education in various topics and sports. Principals, policymakers, invest in your school's high impact tutoring, small groups, targeted learning. Acknowledge that report card gaps are often gaps in access and not ability. School boards. If you can access teachers who have retired and still want to teach and still want to learn, and maybe you have to pay them a little bit less and they're retired, many just to keep the wheels turning, keep the education juices flowing, the speech, the body, everything, they'll come back to work for a lower price just to do in-school tutoring, possibly. Like, there must be something this whole concept of retiring people, I think it's going to end anyways, but there's so many people with know-how, knowledge, and understanding that are just kind of standing on the outskirts of the schools, having absolutely nothing to do with all the things that they've learned and taught over the years, and they could be brought back into the fold to help those underachieving students. Let's see if I can answer some questions. I don't know. Let's see. Do we really believe that talent rises on its own, or do we train it? I think that talent does rise, but there's certain talent that's probably not going to be realized because there's no training, or they have no access to training, or no financial, or the parents don't have time, or there's responsibilities at home. I believe talent can rise, but only sometimes and not always. When we reward achievement, are we rewarding effort or exposure? I think people like to believe that they're rewarding effort, but I think that exposure needs to be taken into consideration. I know that there's certain schools you can't even get into unless you're at a certain level in private lessons. There's certain schools like that. And not saying that there shouldn't be, but just remember, there are kids that have talent and gifts, but they just need to be nurtured, and they need to be nurtured by teachers who are willing to go that extra mile, to miss a lunch break once a week and teach something or extra help something. Okay. Should schools differentiate between rehearsed performance and raw potential? I think in some cases, and I probably would I would need somebody else here probably to try to hash out how that would go. But I definitely think in certain cases you should, you can't judge a kid who's been playing the flute since they were 4, and they're both, they're now in grade 8 with a kid who just picked up one at grade 3 or grade 4, or maybe in grade 8 because they just came to the country, and then you just mark it down and Well, we understand that this kid is really good because they've been playing all those years. There has to be some benchmark. You have kids who win awards at the end of the year. It's check it out and see, did that kid go to Kumon? Is that kid just naturally gifted? Yeah, you're gonna get athlete of the year if you win sprinting and you're the best basketball player, but it doesn't hurt that you on your own can already run like at that age a 12 flat 100 meter. Meanwhile, most kids are doing 14, right? How do you get athlete of the year? So you're gifted with a talent, and then you're gifted with the award. You understand? Same thing goes for education in math or whatever it is. If you just woke up, you just became alive, and for some reason you know how to do algebra for whatever reason, or you know how to play the piano, just you know what I mean? Like there's different ways, like not only access, but yeah, there's gifts as well. And I'm just saying, do we gift the gifted? Just think about it. Or do we gift those who try hard and excel? Or do we gift those who don't excel but try hard and accomplish or achieve? I think these things need to be looked at when they're giving out these things with kids. And it's not let everything for everyone. I believe that there are winners and there are losers. Um, I'm not with those. Like I believe in merit, but if we're really working off merit, and you have a kid on the basketball court and he happens to be 6'4" at 13, and he's just getting all his layups in because he happens to be a full head taller than any other kid, and he has skill because he was also coached, because when they saw his height as a young kid, they said, oh, maybe we got an NBA player here, right? Like there has to be better ways on judging how kids do at school. And it doesn't mean at the same time we should penalize the kids who are getting taught, right? Because the parents have access. But what I'm saying is, don't punish the kids who can't and don't have but are trying. And some kids who are not trying, there's reasons why they're not trying, because there's stuff going on at home. I think you can always grade on a curve. But nope, let's just keep it all run of the mill, right? Let's see. How can we level the playing field when some students are practicing 5 times more than the other outside of the classroom? Well, I think when it comes to testing, I think those things, there needs to be something. I don't know if it's an asterisk, like who's gonna, what parent? We'll just say we're not teaching our kid on this side. We want to see that straight A. We don't want to see asterisk beside their name in math because he got a 95 because we've been paying for math lessons, right? But the bottom line is, there are some kids who are gifted and they get training and they excel and they get into college, university, playing a sport even. And then there's some who really, really have to fight, who really, really have a lot of potential, but they just haven't had the time, so they don't get in. And I guess then somebody would, playing a violin in the corner of the room would say, is that right? Is that fair? And lastly, because they're just keeping this short, we're not just teaching students, we are grading opportunity. And if we keep confusing access with aptitude, we'll keep raising generations of discouraged kids who were capable all along, just never given the same tools to complete. Remember, every kid can learn, but not every kid has someone outside of the school system teaching them how. Maybe it's time we stop asking why some kids fall behind and start asking who's pulling other kids ahead. Anyhow, that's about all I got to say on this. But if this was a conversation, I think you could probably have a pretty good argument. I mean, wherever you are, maybe you could let your teacher friend, husband, wife, cousin, mom, dad, principal, person who's the head of the board listen to this, and I'm sure they've had these thoughts, you know what I mean, and they're probably trying to do something. Somebody is somewhere. But for those who aren't, who haven't been, who should be, which should be everybody, maybe you can pass this episode on to them. Anyhow, this is You're Probably Right, and I am MCM, and I hope to see you next time. Or hear me next time. Take care. Hey, come check out You're Probably Right podcast. Society is getting more unpredictable every day, but at the same time, predictable in its unpredictability. Say that 4 times real fast. Come with me as I attempt to find clarity in all the fog while staying way outside the box and kicking the box way down the road with my size 12 docs. I use the Bible, experience, education, fortune, misfortune, life's lessons, life's mistakes to sort through all the mess. I talk about news, God, God, self-help, sports, sickness, health, music, parenting, love, humbleness, hurt, pain, joy, and all the things that might make you say, I never thought of it that way. Hopefully, anyway. Also, I take a stab at answering tough and not so tough questions, and all the while understand that, listen, sometimes you end up in the hot seat and there's no thermostat. Well, that's how it is here. And because there's no topic, very few topics off the table, Torontonians will understand that Doug Ford reference there. Hopefully the podcast will be helpful and uplifting. And hey, maybe you'll find your own private Idaho here somewhere. Hope to see you soon.